If you asked a group of people what my love language is, probably more than half of them would say, oh, BBL. Literally, whether they know me in personal life or as a patient or a peer in the industry, I spend so much time talking about BBL. It is truly my love language at this point. And it's one of those things in my career I feel so lucky that I have the chance to fire every day and that I've used it for so long. So 11 years ago, when I got in the industry, the facial plastic surgeon's office I worked had BBL. And of course, this was over a decade ago. So the technology has gotten even so much better now. But I really was self-taught then. And I am so appreciative of that time because it really made me sit down and learn and focus in on understanding laser physics and how the light interacts with the tissue and really how to build a treatment plan that the foundation is BBL for all the reasons we're going to talk about today. But what brought this episode up is I spend a lot of time traveling across the US, training other clinics and practitioners on the same concepts that I've learned over the years with BBL. And what is always so alarming to me is how few people truly know and understand the science and the data and the methodology behind BBL that makes it so different from your traditional light-based device like an IPL. And so that's what we're going to dive into today, because if you have BBL, you need to know the difference. It is such a gift that you can offer this difference to your patients. And for those of you who maybe don't have a light-based device yet, or maybe you're on the market soon for one, I hope this is helpful in you understanding why BBL truly, from a clinical standpoint, is a superior option. So let's dive in. Welcome to Kairos Conversations. This is a space for clinicians, leaders, and operators who are building in the aesthetic medicine space with intention. We take the data, the experience, and the real-world challenges of this industry and turn them into clarity you can actually use. I'm Taylor Siemens, nurse practitioner, operator, and founder of Kairos. I know that in this field, it's not just about what you do. It's about when you do it and how you lead through it. Let's dive in. Let me ask you something. When a patient asks you why BBL works, why they should do it multiple times a year, and why it's worth the investment, how it's different from IPL they got somewhere else for like $250, what do you tell them? If your answer is something like, well, it targets pigmentation and redness, or it rejuvenates the skin, it's not that you're wrong, but it's also not the full answer. And today, I want to give you the full answer because it changes how you position this treatment and how you protocol it and how you separate yourself from every other practice offering a photofacial down the street. Here is the reality in most consultation rooms. BBL gets sold just like IPL. Light-based treatments target spots and redness, and they have minimal downtime. It's great for maintenance. That's the pitch, right? And IPL, well, it's been around for decades. It is commoditized. Patients have started to price shop it years ago. Your front desk actually gets calls asking how much for a photofacial, and half the time they're being compared to the practice 2 miles away running a Groupon on IPL. But BBL is not IPL. Not clinically, not mechanically, not at the cellular level. And if you're selling it the same way, you are leaving both revenue and patient outcomes on the table. I want to dive into two studies that together make the scientific case for why BBL is fundamentally different and why that matters inside of your practice. This didn't start in a laboratory. It started with a dermatologist noticing something he couldn't quite explain. Dr. Patrick Bitter Jr. developed the protocols for what we now call Forever Young BBL, and he's performed like over 7,000 BBLs at this point, probably way more than that. And after years in practice, he started noticing his patients who maintained a regular BBL schedule year after year weren't aging the way he expected. Not just in a better skin texture way, but they genuinely looked younger than their untreated peers, measurably younger. His question wasn't, does it work? He already knew that it did. The question really was, why? What is BBL actually doing at the cellular level that produces this outcome over time? And that's the very question that led to a collaboration with Dr. Anlin Chang at Stanford University School of Medicine. And what they published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology is what we're going to walk through today. This study is titled Rejuvenation of Gene Expression Pattern of Aged Human Skin by BroadBand Light Treatment. It is a pilot study, and while that does mean smaller scale, they're more designed to establish the hypothesis and methodology for larger research. But I don't want you to hold that against it because the design is rigorous and the findings have held up years later. And what makes the design so strong is they enrolled two different groups. 5 women under the age of 30 and 5 women over 50 with sun damaged skin. The older women received 3 BBL treatments, one per month, to the left forearm. That's it, one forearm. The other arm was left completely untreated. And 4 weeks after the final treatment, they took some skin biopsy punches from 2 sites on each older participant, the treated area and the adjacent untreated skin. It was the same arm, same person, same lifetime of sun exposure. And they compared both to the biopsies from the younger women. So think about what that design does. You are not comparing different people with different genetics and different sun histories or different skin types. You are comparing the exact same individual to herself. The only variable between the two biopsy sites is whether BBL was applied or not. That's about as clean of a comparison as you can get in dermatology research. What they found using RNA sequencing, a technique that measures which genes are being turned on and which are being turned off, they identified that skin aging was associated with significantly altered gene expression in 2,265 genes. Genes that signal youthful cell function were being suppressed. Genes associated with inflammation and cellular aging were being upregulated. And after 3 BBL treatments, 1,293 of those 2,200 genes, more than half, shifted back towards the expression patterns seen in young skin. Here is the line from the actual paper that I want you to hear. The gene expression pattern of treated age skin more closely resembled that of untreated young skin than untreated age skin from the same individuals. That's the within person comparison. The treated forearm on the same woman looked molecularly younger than her own untreated arm. They also saw clinical improvements in fine wrinkling, abnormal pigmentation, and global skin aging assessment. They were all statistically significant. And on a histological examination, elastotic fibers in the same samples were diminished, and the epidermal thickness had increased. That is not a cosmetic mimic of youthful skin. That is the skin actually behaving younger at the molecular level, confirmed on the same person's own body. It is so fascinating. Now, the Stanford study answers the questions of mechanism. How does BBL produce this effect at the cellular level? But it's a short-term study, 3 treatments over 3 months. The second study answers the question of what happens over years. So Dr. Bitter Jr., along with Dr. Chase and Pozner, conducted a long-term retrospective study of patients who had maintained regular BBL treatments over 5 to 11 years. It was a blinded panel of physicians that were judging this, meaning evaluators who didn't know the patient's actual ages or treatment history. They reviewed the patients and assessed their apparent age. The finding: patients who maintained a regular annual or biannual BBL regimen appeared an average of 9 years younger than their actual age. And the study noted that treated patients showed reduced photo damage, telangiectasias, and skin laxity compared to what would typically be expected for their age. 9 years maintained over time with the mechanism explained by the gene expression research. That's 2 studies. One that proves what BBL is doing inside of the cell, and one that proves what it looks like in the mirror after years of doing it. That's not a single data point. That is a body of evidence. Now, here's the clinical distinction that matters for your practice. IPL, or intense pulse light, it uses a single band of light that primarily targets melanin and hemoglobin in the upper layers of the skin. And it's effective for surface pigmentation and vascular concerns. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it works at the surface. And BBL uses broad spectrum light, multiple wavelengths that penetrates deeper. Specifically, it reaches the basal layer of the skin, and that layer is where your skin has stem cells. It's the layer that generates all of the skin cells above it. And when you influence gene expression at the basal layer, you're not just treating the surface, you are changing what the skin produces going forward. IPL doesn't reach that depth consistently, and the gene expression change documented in the Stanford study is not found after IPL treatment. That's a direct clinical distinction, not a marketing claim. So when a patient tells you they've been doing IPL for years at another practice and wants to know what the difference is, this is your answer. The mechanism is different, the depth is different, and the long-term outcome data exists for BBL in a way it simply doesn't for IPL. Let's bring this out of the research and into your actual treatment room. Your maintenance conversation has a scientific basis now. If BBL's mechanisms were purely surface correction, a single treatment and occasional touch-ups would be the logical protocol. But if the mechanism is cumulative gene expression change, and the long-term data shows 9 years of measurable difference in patients who maintained a regular treatment, then that protocol conversation shifts entirely. You're not just fixing damage, you're maintaining a biological environment that ages more slowly. That is a different value proposition, and it's backed by research. In fact, what I like to say pretty often to my patients is BBL is the treatment that fixes yesterday's damage, prevents today's damage, and saves you from future aging. That's exactly how we position it at Kairos. Your consultation script actually can get a little more specific and more honest. Most patients have never heard that a light-based treatment can influence gene expression. And when you explain it accurately without like this marketing hype behind it, just the clinical mechanism, something shifts in the room because you're no longer selling a treatment. You're explaining a biological process that they can participate in or not. But patients who understand why something works are more compliant with protocols. They're more willing to invest in maintenance, and they are more likely to refer people who are the right fit for the exact same thing. Your differentiation from IPL practices is now defensible. You can't say our BBL is better and just leave it there, but you can say there are 2 published studies showing BBL produces a specific cellular change confirmed on the same person's own body that standard IPL doesn't produce. And patients who maintain this treatment over years appear measurably younger than their untreated peers. It's not a sales pitch. It's a clinical conversation. And most practices in your market, I can promise you, they are not having it. Here's what I want you to do before your next BBL consultation. Pull up the Stanford study. Again, it's called Rejuvenation of Gene Expression Pattern of Aged Human Skin by BroadBand Light Treatment. It was in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology in 2013. It's free on PubMed, okay? Go read the abstract. Look at figure 4. That's the photo of the same forearm, treated and untreated side by side, on a 73-year-old woman after 3 treatments. Then write down word for word how you currently explain BBL to a new patient. And ask yourself honestly, am I giving them the real answer or am I just selling a treatment? The science is already there. The research was done. Most of your competitors have never even read it. That gap between what the treatment actually does and what most practices say it does is where your credibility lives. Use it. I'll see you next time. If this conversation helped you think differently about your practice, share it with someone else who's building with intention. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find more resources, training, and tools inside Kairos Aesthetic Training. Until next time, I'm Taylor Siemens. Stay curious, take action, and trust the timing of your growth.